So you've seen it on the screen. In this video, I'll be teaching you all about white tie and tails. So the most formal dress code for the evening is what we call white tie. Very elegant. We probably recognise it from television and film, period dramas like Upstairs, Downstairs, Downton Abbey. Also has an association with ballroom dancing. So if you watch some television shows with ballroom dancing on, you've probably seen similar outfits. This is a modern tail suit, and it's not a huge amount of difference from the original one, which was a 19th century garment when this look became fashionable. Obviously this wasn't for everybody in the 19th century. This would have been very much an upper class way of dressing who could afford to change from their day clothes into their evening clothes. And the combination of a dark suit and immaculate white shirt was very much in the Victorian Britain view of wealth. It was wealthy enough to have a clean shirt on every day, but not so ostentatious to wear a white suit. So the black suit has a certain restraint to it, and then the white is a symbol of your wealth. The coat itself, similar to the morning coat, it has a panelled back and it has an equestrian feel to it. It's cut away at the front and is fastened in the style of a double-breasted, but actually doesn't fasten at the front at all. It's unusual. So it has the three rows of buttons either side, but doesn't actually fasten. It's cut to the waist and it needs to be slightly shaped. The shoulder needs to be relatively well padded, and it always takes peaked or double-breasted lapels. It will have a facing in it. Now today we'd usually use grosgrain, which is a ribbed material. Often you'll see on older ones it'd actually be faced in, so you'd actually see a little bit of the material to the edge. And on older models you often would sort of velvet top collar. Unlike the morning coat, for example, where there are some subtle variations of lapel shape and pockets, this is very much a fixed garment. The only thing I would touch on is that if you look at models from fashion plates from the early part of the 20th century, they occasionally never had a chest pocket. And I have seen contemporary versions where they've not made a chest pocket. But a chest pocket is well suited. I'll come to that later. So you have the coat with the facing, and the important thing is, again, with it is the trousers. Now, the trousers would be in the same material as the coat, and the material is black or midnight blue. Now when I say midnight blue, I mean a traditional midnight blue, which is absolutely blacker than black. I don't mean the modern trendy midnight which you'll get for a dinner suit, dinner jacket, which has got that definite navy feel to it. It needs to be very, very dark midnight blue. So midnight blue or black, generally in medium to heavyweight baratheas. This is a modern one, so it's a medium weight file cloth, like a lighter weight barathea, pure wool. The trousers are cut high, and I'll come to the reason for that, for a couple of reasons for that. They need to be cut very, very high in the waist, and the only way they're going to stay up is with braces. So they need to be cut with brace tops. I don't even put side adjusters on mine. Straight leg, not overly baggy, not overly tapered, and on the outside you have 2 rows of stripes. So unlike on black tie, where you have 1 row, you have a double row of stripes on the outside, which distinguishes it from black tie. And now to the shirts and accessories. What we've got here is quite stiff items of clothing, and in the last 20 years everything's got so soft. Even dressing the mannequins today remind me how almost austere it is and how crisp it all feels. So starting with the shirt, this one here is a cotton marcella, and it's what we call semi-stiff. So it's been constructed in such a way so it's quite hard to touch. It could also be in linen, and that'd be plain, and that'd be heavily starched. So it'd be a crisp shirt. Because it was so stiff and so crisp, you couldn't put a button through it. So hence you have dress studs. For white tie, traditionally you'd have 1, 2 or 3 studs, depending on your style of shirt and your stature and your build. So 1, 2 or 3 studs. I think this one here is only showing 2 studs. The collar is detachable, so you've got even more studs. You've got a front and a back stud, which attaches it to the neck, and that is very heavily polished and starched. So it sits really, really proud. Clue in the title, a white bow tie. Now this white bow tie is in pure cotton marcella. Now the white bow tie, if you think you can tie a bow tie, try tying a white cotton bow, it's quite stiff and quite cumbersome. And because it's a wing collar, it needs to be tied yourself, because if you have a clip at the back, it'll be exposed. So you really need to, if you're going to wear a white tie and do it really well, you need to find a sized or single-ended white Marcella bow tie. I would suggest, if you're going to go to the effort, you want to wear this and you want to have one made, definitely don't treat the bow tie as an afterthought. Get something bespoke. La Boutique Bow Ties makes the most beautiful bow ties. He would do a bespoke one, and I would say for the effort of doing this whole outfit, getting the perfect bow tie is essential. When you see a pre-tied one, it just looks it looks a little bit sad. So I would always suggest making the effort, getting a proper bow tie, sized, single-ended, ideally bespoke. And I will state the obvious, that for white tie, you must wear a white bow tie. When I say white, it's not an optic white. It's a rich, natural white, slightly creamy. The reason it will be slightly off-white is that the starching changes the colour, and with time it actually goes quite yellow. I've actually got I've seen some vintage 20th century starched to linen dress shirts, and they look almost yellow because the starch discolours with time. The cuffs on a white tie shirt are single for links. Often you'll see for white tie people wearing a black tie wing collared shirt, because it has a wing collar, it has studs and it takes cuff links. It's not the worst thing I've seen done, but the proper white tie shirt has single link cuffs and a detachable collar, and at least a semi-stiff front. Now the waistcoat. Now the waistcoat is tricky because the waistcoat has quite a hard job to do. I remember this when I developed this suit. This is the first prototype. It had to do a number of things. First of all, it has to cover the waistband. Secondly, it has to be invisible under the fronts here. So if you look closely, we couldn't squeeze the waistband up high enough because of the mannequin. Ideally, you wouldn't see any of the waistband of the trouser, nor would you see, as you haven't seen here, any white coming down. The waistcoat itself is in the same material. This is a Marcella, which matches the shirt and the bow tie. It isn't incorrect to wear a black waistcoat with white tie. I know that because when I was doing some research on this, and I was looking at a 1930s guide to court dress, where it actually said you must never see the waistcoat underneath the protruding at the front, it did mention the black waistcoat was appropriate in periods of mourning. Typically, a waistcoat worn with white tie will be backless. Now, there's a lot of prejudice against backless waistcoats. I know a lot of my friends in the traditional menswear industry see them as a little bit higher, a little bit second rate. But I actually am a big fan of them. Because if you understand why we did it, for white tie at least, for practical reasons. The backless waistcoat was invented by Benson and Clegg in the late 1930s, I think about 36, 37. They were tailors working for Hawes and Curtis, who were tailors to then Prince of Wales. And they discovered that the waistcoats would often be uncomfortable for dancing in, but more importantly, when they were being laundered, because these had to be laundered, they would shrink differently. So the back and the front would shrink at different rates, and they would ride up and wouldn't sit properly. So they devised a way of making it backless so that it could be laundered. And with laundry comes the option to starch. And I've got an example here of something which is comically stiff. Well, just look, that's how stiff and starched that is. If you can imagine that being in the same type of material as the shirt, it's quite an uptight look. Immaculate, but you can imagine wearing this every evening would have been, well, if you're used to it, fun occasionally, but that is really, really stiff. It's important to note, this is probably, if you go to any menswear shop in the West End, or this is the waistcoat you'll be given. When I did some research on it, back in the 1930s, when this was being worn regularly, and if you read any of the Bertie Wooster novels, and you read about his wardrobe, he had dozens of waistcoats, dozens of shirts, dozens of bow ties, because if you're wearing this every day, the subtle variations become interesting. So there were probably 24 variations of different styles. If you look at old-fashioned plates, there were some wonderful, wonderful waistcoats you could wear with white tie, slight variations of the shape of the bow tie, slight variations on the collar, but this is considered now as the normal traditional classic version. Now, of course, it wouldn't be a Rampling Co video without talking of the pocket square. As I said before, older models never took a chest pocket. It's not incorrect not to have anything in there. Often flowers are worn of an evening, beautiful. I would tend to go for a plain white linen, just neatly folded. And with such an elegant outfit, you need to finish it with elegant footwear. So the options would be things like patent Oxfords without a toe cap, highly polished hole cuts kind of work. But for me, my favourite shoe for this is to wear a proper dress pump, or sometimes called a court shoe, which is a very low with a flat bow or a pinched bow. Of course, if you're wearing a very low shoe, a low slip-on shoe, your socks are important. And purists will say they need to be black silk dress socks, which are a wonderful thing. I actually quite like a very, very dark red sock with white tie. If you do get the opportunity to wear it, take it. It feels great. It's a lovely, wonderful thing to wear. I've really enjoyed just seeing it on the mannequin. It's reminded me that I wish I could wear it more often. My final tip would be make sure you get your grooming absolutely right. I think when you've just got black and white, make sure you look really well groomed. So just make sure you have a fresh haircut, freshly shaven, or your beard is well trimmed, because it just really draws attention to the face. I would probably put some product in my hair, go for a bit of a 30s look, maybe sort of keep it quite close to the head, and just look really well put together. For accessories, you don't wear a wristwatch with white tie. You can wear a pocket watch. I'd opt against it because I think it depends if you've got the starched waistcoat, it's gonna crack the starch. But if you're confident wearing a pocket watch with a waistcoat and it works, you can maybe do a pocket watch, but don't wear a wristwatch. You could wear an opera hat, which is an evening version of a top hat. And technically, when you're in the street, you should always wear an overcoat with your tails, even in summer. And a gentleman would wear white gloves with this. If it was one for dancing, if it was a ball, he would change into his clean white gloves for dancing, then have a different pair for traveling. One thing I would like to see a return of, or I say return of, what I would like to see more of, should I say, is I think this makes such a wonderful outfit for a groom. One of the best weddings I've been to is a good friend of mine, and he had a black tie wedding, and he was like, well, I want to be evening dressed, but I want to look like the groom. And we dressed him in white tie, and everybody else was in black tie. White tie and black tie together, yeah, they're both elegant evening dress. Well, I hope you found that informative. And if you ever get the chance to wear a white tie, just take it. It's great fun to dress up like this, even if it's once in your life. I'm glad I had the opportunity. I hope I get more. I'd hate to see this dress code disappear. Anyway, what are your thoughts? Put them in the comments below and hit that subscribe button.